The Matrix, Part 1. The defining dramatic moment in the film The Matrix occurs just after Morpheus invites Neo to choose between the red pill and the blue pill. The red pill promises the truth, nothing more. Neo takes the red pill and awakens to reality, something utterly different from anything Neo or the audience could have expected. What Neo had assumed to be reality turned out to be only a collective illusion, fabricated by the Matrix and fed to a population that is asleep, cocooned in grotesque embryonic pods. In Plato's famous parable about the shadows on the walls of the cave, true reality is at least reflected in perceived reality. In the Matrix world, true reality and perceived reality exist on entirely different planes. You know, that movie, The Matrix, of course, is intended as a metaphor, and the parallels that drew my attention had to do with the political reality. So this article, and this is not my article, I want to point out, this is the article by Richard Moore. I'll post a link to it. This article offers a particular perspective on what's going on in the world, on how things got to be that way in this era of globalization. And from that red pill perspective, everyday media consensus reality, like the Matrix in the film, is seen to be a fabricated collective illusion. Like Neo, I didn't know what I was looking for when my investigation began, but I knew that what I was being told didn't make any sense. I read scores of histories and biographies observing connections, interconnections between them, and began to develop my own theories about roots of various historical events. I found myself largely in agreement with writers like Noam Chomsky and Michael Parenti, but I also perceived important patterns that others seemed to have missed. As my own picture of reality came into more and more focus, grain of salt no longer worked as a metaphor. I began to see that consensus reality, as generated by official rhetoric and amplified by mass media every single day, bears little relationship to actual reality. The Matrix was a metaphor I was ready for. This perspective on the political process and on the roles of the left and the right is very far from reality. It is a fabricated collective illusion. Morpheus tells Neo that the Matrix is the world that was pulled over your eyes to hide you from the truth. As long as the Matrix exists, humanity cannot be free. Consensus political reality is precisely such a matrix. Later, we will take a fresh look at the role of the left and the right, and in national politics. Imperialism and the Matrix. From the time of Columbus to 1945, world affairs were largely dominated by competition amongst Western nations, seeking to stake out spheres of influence, control sea lanes, exploit colonial empires. Each Western powers became the core of an imperialist economy whose periphery was managed for the benefit of a core nation. Military might determined the scope of that empire. Wars were initiated when a core nation felt it had sufficient power to expand its periphery at the expense of the competitor. Economies and societies in the periphery were to be kept backward, to keep their populations somewhat under control, to provide cheap labor, to guarantee markets for goods manufactured in the core. Imperialism robbed the periphery not only of wealth but also of its ability to develop its own societies, cultures, and economies in a natural way for local benefit. The driving force behind Western imperialism has always been the pursuit of economic gain, ever since Isabella commissioned Columbus on his first entrepreneurial voyage. The rhetoric of empire concerning wars, however, has typically been about other things, like the white man's burden, bringing true religion to the heathens, a manifest destiny, defeating the yellow peril and the Huns, and so on. Lebensraum, all that stuff. Or making the world safe for democracy. Any fabricated motivation for war or empire would do, as long as it appealed to a collective consciousness of the population at the time. The propaganda lies of yesterday were recorded and became consensus history. The fabric of the matrix. While the costs of territorial empire, fleets, colonial administrations, etc., were borne by Western taxpayers generally, the profits of imperialism were enjoyed primarily by private corporations and their major investors. Government and corporate elites were partners in the business of imperialism. Empires gave government leaders power and prestige, and gave corporate leaders power and wealth. Corporations ran the real business of empire, while government leaders fabricated noble excuses for the wars that were required to keep that business going. Matrix reality was about patriotism, national honor, heroic causes. True reality was another place altogether, that of economics. I think I'll cut off here and move on to part 2.